Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. The Investing in African Mining Indaba took place in Cape Town this week, and Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer was there for the headlines. Welcome, Martin.
Hi, Sashni.
Now, Minerals Council South Africa gave its support for a just transition to cleaner energy in the face of climate change.
Yes, I think the Minerals Council South Africa deserves a firm pat on the back for the way they are dealing with this just transition from, coal-based economy to a cleaner energy-based economy. Now, this affects the people of South Africa because of jobs, but because of the fact that the cleaner energy also generates jobs, there's a chance, for workers to move from one to the other. But they're looking much bigger than that, because say you're working in a coalfield in Mpumalanga, and eventually the power station closes down there and they don't need that coal anymore. What they're starting to look at is what is available in that area. Particularly, you need to check, get soil samples, find out what agriculture can grow in this area. And, you could get people not having to move at all to where the wind blows and where the sun shines. They can stay where they are if you have a plan going for them, how they can be re-employed when you're moving from coal energy, which is no longer accepted by the world, to wind and sun energy, which is being embraced vigorously by the world to make sure that we mitigate climate change.
And the council also gave its support for junior miners.
Yes, it was wonderful to see them backing junior miners, because the perception is that Minerals Council South Africa only backs the big mining companies, the majors. And when they could outline how 40% of their membership is now junior based, and how they're promoting the junior concept, and how they're negotiating with government to get a better deal for what is classed as a junior. Because the 150 million threshold that has been placed as for turnover for a junior to be declared a junior is seen by them as laughably low. It needs to be at least 500 million, and in other countries like Canada it's even much higher, and you can still be classified as a junior miner and get some of those special benefits that go for junior mining. Again, the whole concept of flow-through finance, the flow-through scheme that Canada had, came up. And again, there was massive support for a type of flow-through scheme to be adopted in South Africa. That flow-through scheme means tax benefits flow through to investors in junior miners. So you might be, as I've experienced, a taxi driver in Canada, and you might have shares in a junior miner, and you're very excited about it because come the end of the financial year, you stand to get tax benefits from that investment in the junior miner. So it's been hugely successful. And we know that at one stage, our former Minister of Finance, Trevor Manuel, was keen to actually enact this and to get it going in South Africa. And he actually promised during one budget that the following year he would introduce it. The following year he introduced something which he said was better, and it had been gazetted, and we ran to get that gazette, and we actually got the person to study it overnight. They never slept. And when he came back to us the next morning, he said this is the worst document he's seen. It's not going to incentivize anybody, and he used the word parsimonious, which means stingy in the extreme. So he said this is useless. And as we saw, nobody actually, one company went to try and get a mining benefit out of it and then withdrew. But when you asked Treasury, what was the response? Oh yes, we've had a big response. How many numbers? They give you the numbers. And then you find out these are boutiques in Cape Town. So what sort of mental approach was that Treasury official going through? And when we actually tried to approach him, he was hostile towards the media. Thank goodness he's out of the Treasury. But he has actually set the junior mining back terribly by behaving in a way that was non-negotiable and did not suit the mining industry at all, but pretended to be suitable for the mining industry, but only was brought up by Cape boutiques. I mean, that should be raised as something that's hurt South Africa very, very badly. And now you get there, and they're still talking about this. They're still talking about how you can facilitate, the juniors. But people on the stock exchange need to also be incentivized to invest in these. We've got a stock exchange where the fund managers are told you may not invest in juniors. So, the smaller retail investor doesn't go into these junior opportunities because all that money is already in a pension fund, and then the pension fund invests in the bigger companies, and they're told they can't invest in the smaller companies. So how's it going to get going? We must stop saying it's just a one-sided thing here. The investment also needs to be encouraged, and that's through the flow-through scheme. And if it had been introduced, it would have been a fantastic thing.
And lastly, the Council has called for urgent action to revive South Africa's struggling economy.
Yes, I think that was an also important, Mkhulisi Mgojo, the president of Minerals Council South Africa, he kicked off his whole media interchange there with the need to revive the South African economy and how important it was for the government to take action now to revive this economy, and that, the engagement with the government by Minerals Council South Africa, which has always been very diplomatic, would become more robust in order to ensure that South Africa and the South African people, benefit from the working this economy in a way that creates jobs, that creates growth, that we've got to have that economic growth. We've got to revive this growth. And he was saying we've got to do it. He's got the full backing of a lot of people in South Africa that, we need to see more signs from the government about getting this economy going. And when we went into an interchange with, the Mineral Resources and Energy Minister, Gwedi Mantashe, we as Mining Weekly put it to him that the world knows that to introduce wind energy and to introduce solar energy, introduce renewables, is quicker and cheaper at the moment. Now, he pulled out figures which would go back to the original IPPs which started to produce renewables in South Africa. And of course, they were paid an encouraging tariff because it was to start them going. So he still looks at that. And when you try and say to him, look, it's historic, he's saying, no, this is the reality. But we're saying now, you've got to close a gap in order to make sure that we don't have load shedding. In other words, you have to increase the capacity to generate electricity. And there's a gap, and you need to fill that. And is it urgent or is it not urgent? Yes, it's urgent. And do you want to go the cheapest route? Yes, you do. So why aren't you encouraging, wind and renewables? And then he will pull out a document which shows you that Koeberg is coming in at 50 cents a kilowatt hour. And you say to him, well, Koeberg went ahead 3 decades ago. So, of course, it's amortized. It's a different situation. We're talking about new for new. And we've got to fill that gap. What do we do? But he emphasized that, he is looking, and he'd like to do it very quickly, to create a generator of electricity outside of Eskom. Now, what this is all about, I'm not too clear, but he seems to want to create a company outside of Eskom. Now, is that going to be urgent? I don't know. He seems to want it to be urgent. If you ask him what it's about, he says gas. But it's not clear to me how this is going to fill this gap very, very fast. So, you do need to see some sort of urgent action by the government, and I didn't see it when I was down there, and that is quite worrying.
Thanks for speaking with us.
It's a great pleasure, Sashni.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on the local and global mining industries. And don't forget to listen to the audio version of our Mining Weekly daily email newsletter.